Lesson 80 problems. Okay, let's do number 1, 2, 5, 6, 8, 9, 10, 14, 16, 17, 19, 21, 24, 26, 29, and 30. Okay, number 1, cost varies directly as the number purchased. If 14 can be purchased for $119, how much would 32 cost? Work the problem using the direct variation method. Okay, so they want you to use not the method you learned today, but the one we learned a couple lessons back, and then this next problem, number 2, they want you to use today. So they want you to be able to use both. So you need to solve it the way they've told you to. So cost equals some variable times the number purchased. So the cost, and it's very directly, that's why we're doing multiplication and not division. So we have the cost of 119 equals K times 14. Okay, so we need to solve for K first. So I'm going to divide both sides by 14. K equals 8.5. Okay, now, how much would 32 cost? So C equals 8.5 times 32. Okay, go ahead and write down your answer for that. Number 2. Now they want you to solve it today's using the ratios. Blues vary inversely. Okay, so this is where we're going to, normally we would use the K and divide, but now we're going to have A1 over A2 equals B2 over B1. Blues vary inversely as yellows squared. If 50 blues go with 5 yellows, how many blues go with 10 yellows? Okay, so I'm thinking of this as blue 1 over blue 2 equals, and then it's inverse. So yellow 2, I guess I'll have to write these as subscripts because I have squared. Yellow 2 squared over yellow 1 squared. I guess I'll put parentheses. Maybe that makes it more obvious. Okay, now let's go ahead and plug in our stuff. So blues, if 50 blues go with 5 yellows, how many blues, so that's what they're asking for, go with 10 yellows? I swear this was the exact problem they gave us in the book. Maybe not, maybe just a couple numbers are off. Okay, so I'm going to cross multiply. So I have 100 B2 equals 50 times 25, and then divide that by 100, and you have your answer for B2. All right, number 5. Dogs were $40 each and cats cost only $2 each. If Doe Run bought 30 animals and paid a total of $820, how many animals of each kind did he buy? Okay, this is where you have the two equations and you're going to have to substitute. So dogs plus cats equals 30. And then we need to put in our dollar amounts. So 40D plus 2C equals 820. Okay, you can solve this now with these two equations. So you need to make this say C equals and then substitute it into C and solve for D and C. All right, number 6. X squared minus x minus 2 under a square root, and then I'm going to move equals x minus 2 because I want to get everything that's under the radicand or the square root by itself, because then I'm going to square both sides, and instead of writing squared, I'm just going to write out this x minus 2. It helps me to see it better, to know that we have to FOIL. So now we have x squared minus x, because the square root cancels out a square, minus 2 equals x first, x times x, x squared, outer plus inner, so negative 2x and negative 2x, minus 4x, and then last times last, plus 4. Okay, now I'm going to subtract x squared from both sides. I'm going to add 4x to both sides and add 2 to both sides. Okay, and then you should be able to solve for x. Then you need to plug it back into your original equation and see if that actually works, because sometimes it doesn't work and then your answer needs to be undefined or not able to solve or something to that effect. Number 8. All right, square root of s minus 18 plus the square root of s minus 36 equals 0. Okay, we need to get this square root by itself. So I'm going to have the square root of s minus 36 equals, I'm moving everything over here. So minus the square root, actually, yeah, minus the square root of s plus 18. Okay, and I'm going to square both sides. That means I'm going to be FOILing this. Okay, so these cancel out. S minus 36 equals, all right, the square root of s times the square root of s, the negatives cancel to become a plus, and the square roots cancel, so we just have s. Negative 8, and I'm not going to add my outer and my inner in one step like I normally do. Sometimes with these, if they've got variables, I'll write it all out to make it a little bit easier. So negative 1 times 18, negative 18 times the square root of s, now my inners, negative 1 times 18 minus 18 times the square root of s, and then outer times outer, plus 324. Okay, so these combined, I wanted to say 36, yep. Okay, so s minus 36 times the square root of s plus 324. Okay, now I need to try to get this by itself. So I'm going to subtract s from both sides, and that's actually going to cancel those out. I'm going to subtract 324 from both sides. Okay, and that's going to give me, I don't know if this is cutting off, 360 equals negative 36 times the square root of s. Okay, and then I'm going to divide both sides by 36. And then I have, sorry if you can't see this, the square root of s equals 10. Now how do I get rid of a square root? Square it. So I have to square both sides. So s equals 100. Then you need to plug that back in. Make sure that it works. Okay, so square root of 100 minus 18 plus square root of 100 minus 36 equals 0. You need to make sure that all checks out and that we can write this as our answer. Okay, number 9. This is the 3 variable one. So I'm going to make the bottom one say 2x equals z. And I hate when they put 2's and z's. I have a hard time differentiating mine. I write them too similar, I guess. 2x equals z. Okay, now I'm going to go back to the top and plug this in for x. So I'm going to combine in one step. X plus 2x. So I have 3x plus y equals 8. And then I have 2x minus 2x. So those cancel out. Minus 3y equals negative 6. So I guess I can just solve for that. So y equals 2. Okay, so then now that you've got y equals 2, because I could just use this equation by itself, it didn't have two variables, so I could solve for y since negative 2x and positive 2x canceled out. Now use this, now that you have one solved, plug it into something else. So plug it into this equation and solve for x. And then when you have x, plug x in here and solve for z. You should have 3 answers, and you're just going to have them in, this is not the answer, but, well, I'll use ABC instead. This format, first number, second number, third number, in parentheses. That'll be how you write your answer. Oh, 10. Okay. Add 4 at 60 degrees minus 6 at negative 200 degrees. These are long problems, but I gave you this one and not 11, so stick with me here. Okay, you're going to draw your graph out. So I have 4 at 60 degrees. I always start here, okay, 60 degrees. I'm just going to make an estimate, draw my right triangle. This will be 6. This is my right triangle. I'll use this as x and y. Actually, I should use those as u's and p's, or r's. Okay, so I got to figure this one out before I do the next one. Okay, so that means I'm trying to figure out, oh, this angle was 60. Okay, so 60 degrees, I need to use my sine, cosine, tangent. So opposite over hypotenuse. So sine 60 equals opposite over hypotenuse. I multiply by 6 to get rid of it. U equals, you're going to punch into your calculator, 6 sine 60, okay? Whatever you get for an answer, that is your U. Okay, you've just solved for the U part. Okay, now you're going to do the same thing for R, cosine. Okay, then you need to write your R's and your U's somewhere, okay? Because you're going to need them for the next part to add it together. Okay, now I'm going to have to draw another graph, negative 200 degrees. So I always start here. And I need to go backwards. Since it's negative, instead of going the normal way that I go, clockwise or counterclockwise, I'm going clockwise. So 200, well, this is 180, so I'm stopping about here. Okay, so let's see, at negative 6. Oh, I don't think I need to use that as a negative. You can just use that as a 6. Make sure when you're writing out whatever you got for the U and R here, then it's going to be the U plus R, whatever those were, minus. That's what, instead of writing negative 6, it's minus. Okay, and we're just using a regular 6 here. Okay, 200 degrees, 180. We need to figure out this angle. So 90 minus 20, because from 180 to 200 is 20, which is 70. So let's see, finish my right angle here. This is 70. I've got my 6 here. Okay, then I have my R and my U. Now I'm going to solve for these. Okay, so sine 70, opposite over hypotenuse, U over 6. Cosine 70, adjacent over hypotenuse. And whatever you get for those answers, then you need to subtract them. I don't know if that's plus or minus. And then whatever your answer is for that, it'll be in an RU format. Okay, that Number 10, 14. All right, 2 minus 3 times the square root of 2 over 3 minus 2 times the square root of 2. Okay, we can't have square roots in the bottom of fractions, so we got to multiply by the conjugate, which is the opposite sign. Whatever we do to the bottom, we have to do to the top. So we're doing the same thing there. Okay, so we'll do the top first. I don't know if I'm going to have enough room here, if it's going to cut off. First, we're foiling. First, outer plus inner times last. So first times first, we get 6. Outer, 2 times 2 is 4. So plus, let's see, try to do this all in one step. 4 and inner is negative 3 times 3, so 9 minus 9. So minus 5 times the square root of 2. And then negative 3 times 2 is negative 6. The square root of 2 times the square root of 2 cancels out to be just 2, so minus 12 over, okay, 3 times 3 is 9, then my outers plus my inners will cancel out. That's the whole point of the conjugate, multiplying by the opposite sign, so I'm not going to worry about that. And then negative 2 times 2 is negative 4. Square root of 2 times the square root of 2 cancels out to be just 2. So negative 4 times 2 minus 8. Okay, so my whole thing's over 1, so I'm not even going to have a denominator. And I cannot simplify that. Oh, sorry, my 6's. 6 and negative 12 combine to be negative 6 minus 5 times the square root of 2. And that's your simplified answer. I always think I'm going to just start you on these problems and then I get going and I can't help but finish them. Okay, 16. Completing the square. All right, well, let's get this written in a format we can use. So we don't want a negative at the beginning of this. So 3x squared minus 3x, I'm essentially moving everything to the right side, minus, let's see, equals, I gotta leave a space there, equals 2. Okay, remember these, getting that set up? Okay, now I can't have a variable with the x squared, so I've got to divide everything by 3. So now I have x squared minus x equals 2/3. Okay, now taking half of negative 1, okay, and then I'm squaring that, negative 1/2 times negative 1/2 plus 1/4. Whatever I do to one side, I got to do to the other. Okay, then my x minus 1/2 squared equals, find a common denominator here and add these two fractions, takes the square root of both sides, and you'll have x minus 1/2, you got to move this over, so x equals 1/2 plus or minus the square root of whatever you got for these, okay? Okay, find y. A equals xm, I'm just going to distribute it now, xmp over y plus xmq over c. Okay, my common denominator is yc, so ayc equals xmpc plus xmqy. Okay, now you're solving for y. So you need to move this y over here and this one over here. Okay, so you have all your y's on one side, pull out your y, and then divide by what's inside the parentheses, and that'll be your answer. Okay, 19, use similar triangles to find each of these. Okay, so this first one, 5NM, it's a 90, 45, 45 triangle. And the similar triangle that we're comparing it to is a 1, 1 square root of 2 triangle. Okay, so that means my scale factor here is 5 over the square root of 2. Okay, so this divided by this, but I can't have a square root in the bottom, so I've got to deal with that. So 5 times the square root of 2 over 2 is my scale factor, which seems intimidating until you see, oh, these are ones. So that means m and n are both going to be whatever my scale factor is. So these 45, 45 triangles are pretty easy, even if this is square root of 2. Because once you determine the scale factor, then that's it. That is the answer for those. Okay, so that was m and n. Then you have a 30, 60, 90 triangle here. For the next one, 5, 60, 30, these aren't drawn to scale. D, okay. Okay, so here, and sometimes I get mixed up on where, oh, 1, 2, and this is the square root of 3. No. Hang on. 6 less than 66. Sometimes I have to look back to make sure I'm putting my things in the right spots. Sorry. Okay, I have to remember the 2 is across from the 1 square root of 3, 2. They mix up where those should go. Okay, so my scale factor is 5/2. Well, that's super easy for C because I just take 1 times 5/2. For D, I need to take the square root of 3 times 5/2. Okay, so 5 times the square root of 3 over 2. Let's see, 20, 21. Okay, we've been doing these, so take a look at the decimal. It goes out 2 places, so I'm going to multiply everything by 100. So that turns it into 7x plus 6y equals 132. And then for the fractions, my common denominator is 12. So I need to multiply 2 by 4. So 8x minus 3y equals 6 times 12 equals 72. All right, now you need to just solve for those. So however you want to do that, elimination or substitution. All right, 24, you should be able to do that. If you're not sure of any formulas, you can look those up in lesson at the beginning of the book in lesson A and B. They've got a ton of formulas. I think you've not had trouble with those. 26, okay? This one is paying attention to your negatives and zeros. So anything to the 0 power is 1, but you can't just ignore the negatives. So you're going to have -1 times -1. Which obviously gives you a +1, okay? And then on the bottom, don't worry about the negative outside of the parentheses yet. You're going to do that last. And then you have a negative exponent, so actually you're going to flip-flop them and forget the 1 on top. It's just going to be negative, and then you got to deal with 4 to the 3/2. Top number is the exponent, bottom number is the root. So I like to take the root first if it's a perfect square like this is. So I have 2 and then 2 to the 3rd power. Partly because I find the calculator too confusing to type in roots other than square roots. I don't always, it always takes me a little bit to figure out how to change the square root into like a cube root or 4th root or whatever it is. But So I find taking the square or the cube first is easier and then using the exponent, but you can do it either way. All right, that's 26, 29. Pull out that x, and then this should be simple factoring. Okay, this is not completing the square. And then 30. We gotta know how to do these. Find the equation of the line. Your answer is going to be in this format. Perpendicular slope. So when they give you an equation, negative x minus y 1 equals 0, the whole purpose of that equation is to tell you what the slope is. That equation is not in this format, so it doesn't do me any good. So I've got to fix that. So y equals negative x minus 1. You got to know how to rearrange that to put that in this format. Then you got to know that this is the slope, and then you got to understand what perpendicular means. So what does perpendicular mean about the slope? It's either the same slope or it's the opposite reciprocal. If you don't know, I guess you need to look that up in lesson 31. Okay, that's your slope. Okay, then you need to plug in the points they've given you, y and x, to solve for b, and your answer needs to be in this equation format with the slope you get and solving for b. Okay, and that's it for lesson 80.